Yeah. Welcome everybody to another episode of Recreation Rooster. I'm Dan Chiavo once again, and I'm with my co-host Maisha Jones. And we're gonna start off with our quote of the day, like usual. So many to choose from. Well,
Yes, and
really. While therapeutic recreation seems to be striving for more recognition within the medical model, most, if not all, other therapeutic modalities are trying to understand how they can become more closely aligned with a holistic approach to treatment. We have the inherent connection that can bridge the gap between clinical services and community inclusion while providing an exemplary model for holistic medicine. So, I know that was a little bit of a longer quote today, but
yeah, it was.
um,
Let's say
uh-huh,
it one more
yeah,
time.
yeah. Well, therapeutic recreation seems to be striving for more recognition within the medical model. Most, if not all, other therapeutic modalities are trying to understand how they can become more closely aligned with a holistic approach to treatment. We have the inherent connection that can bridge the gap between clinical services and community inclusion while providing an exemplary model for holistic medicine. So, yeah, that's part of what makes us beautiful is that we naturally have a holistic, we look at the whole person and the context of their environment and we attempt to maximize it. That's pretty much embedded in our premise. And now everything is, yeah, everybody else is starting to do the same thing now.
You're right. It's definitely shifting in that direction. We see it happening with biotech. We see it happening with with the change in infrastructure of service delivery. We're even seeing a little bit of a slowing of a change when it comes to managed care and how different insurance agencies and also governmental Medicare and Medicaid are starting to also embrace this approach. Because I think what they're seeing at the end of the day is that if we're just in the business of treating people and treating the symptoms till they're just good enough to get more care and more medicine and more interventions, and that is not a sustainable approach to making our community, making our nations healthy and whole. I believe that with recreation therapists, we oftentimes do have more of a holistic approach because we want to help people to find a cure and to manage and optimize their functionality so they don't have to return. The benchmarks that we have as far as when it comes to success is not about how long can I keep this client. It is, can this client sustain themselves? Are they sustainable? Can they have optimized independence? And how can we as therapists help them to gain this? How can we impart skills, resources to them so that they can increase their life resiliency and optimize their quality of life and their functionality? So I'm really happy to see that it is shifting. I just want to ensure that we as recreation therapists, as we see this watershed moment right before our eyes, that we're not gobbled up whole by it, that we're not left in the dust. So we definitely have to take, I would say, the horse by the reins when it comes to this and let people know that we are the experts in this arena of bridging holistic, non-invasive interventions, right? With more traditional um, delivery of care. That we need to make sure that we're at the forefront and we help to shape this so that it can be sustainable and so that it can be successful. So that the metrics that people are utilizing to demonstrate success is more in alignment with holistic. And there are other folks who tend to have a hobby in holistic modalities don't pretty much take our place. So that one was so good. That quote was so great. We needed that for episode 19, which is our first, Monday of May 2024. So that was spot on. I really did enjoy that one tremendously. Please, our viewership, reach out, comment, like, and share as well. We would love to interact with you guys. And next up, guys, we have our song of the day. Take it away, Dan.
Yeah, and in this case, it's going to be Hurricane by Bob Dylan. I mean, some of you might know the story of Hurricane, but he was a boxer that was presumed largely because of his race that he was guilty of murder one. But Bob Dylan realized that he was innocent, and that song helped give him another trial, and he was eventually deemed not guilty. So it was really a fight, and it was really a big social justice issue, and it could probably, through that, resonate with some of our people who are black and brown and who we work with, and whether formally or informally, been discriminated against or kind of labeled and pushed aside because of the color of their skin. So this is actually an area that people can relate to. People, participants can relate to.
Absolutely. I never knew about this song until I watched the film that was made after the documentary about this boxer and how he was framed and wrongly accused and served a lot of time for, things that he never did. And it just gave me, I would say, more insight into what it is to be an athlete, to be someone who's in the spotlight of the American popular culture, the American public. And sometimes the when you don't fit the image, or you say things that might not be in alignment with what popular culture is uh, thinking and doing and perspective is on, then it sometimes puts a target on your chest. And then Bob Dylan, he's just so prolific. He's just such an amazing musician, songwriter, singer, just how he was able to utilize his gift of music to impart social change. Um, I
Voice
think
of a
that,
generation, and
yeah,
uh,
absolutely.
these songs really mirror society. Music can mirror society. Rock music, in particular, is known to mirror society, and have that back and forth relationship that sort of shines a spotlight and highlights issues of social justice, racial justice, economic justice, etc.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, just in thinking about it all, how every day we all can play a part in building community, creating equity and fairness and justice, right? For all of the ills of the world. Even right now, with us dealing with the conflicts that are overseas and how they're spilling out onto our college campuses, into our workplaces, and into, common, community areas. Um, just taking on music as a vehicle for change so that we can embrace the things that we have in common and have tolerance for the things that we do not have in common, but also speaking truth to power and denouncing evil, right? Just denouncing it, denouncing what is wrong and what is not right, boldly. Is something that I gather from Bob Dylan like on a regular basis. God bless him.
Yeah, oh yeah, 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 yeah. No doubt. Yeah, without a doubt. He's definitely quite something else. So, definitely I encourage you all to listen to that song and highlight it in some of your programs because that's something that a lot of your participants may benefit from hearing. So about and on a lighter note, pushing forward, um, actionable steps into your I would encourage you all this time of year to highlight your outdoor programs. A lot of people really love the outdoors. This is also the time of year when you could have festivals, concerts. It's easier for community outings. I mean, across the country, the weather is there's less barriers with weather because there's not snow and hopefully not even as much rain, unless maybe you're in Seattle or something. But then it's kind of that way all year. However,
Mhm.
still, this is a great time of year to highlight your outdoor programs, and it's something that resonates with many people. It really does. So, uh, I would definitely encourage you all to do that. This time of year is important, and of course, it's also something that could be highlighted in local papers and other areas that can make your facility look good and advocate for the profession, etc.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I oftentimes, just being a person that was always, as a recreation therapist, always utilizing outdoor spaces. The spring and the summer months, it's just amazing for recreation therapy. You got to remember, guys, hands down, we're just so amazing as allied health professionals when it comes to, programming, especially when the weather's nice. We get the latitude to go in and create amazing experiences for our clients that improve their health and well-being. And this is really the time for us to shine. um, you know, it's not about bragging. It's about really stating the facts and showing the evidence of all the great work that we do, as well. So highlight, showcase those spring and summer RT programs. Highlight and showcase the metrics, the outcomes, that you are delivering, that you are acquiring at the end of these programs, and you will see that throughout the remainder of the year, it will greatly help you to garner support, recognition, and validation from clients, but also from colleagues in different professions and also within the profession. So always take that into a strong consideration. Highlight those spring and summer programs. I love that. Thank you for mentioning that. Yeah.
Welcome. All right, now we're going to talk about below the surface, recreation and leisure subcultures.
All
And you
right.
could go ahead with that, Maisha.
Thank you. So, for those who are from Southern California, you do know that we're very well known for our Santa Ana winds. Um, and with this wind, we garner a lot of different benefits. It's not always a disservice. So, one of the main benefits is that we use wind power. So we do harness energy from the winds using turbines. So depending on where you are, high desert, whatnot, you will oftentimes see turbines spinning. Okay. But one other recreation therapy pursuit that we often do here in Southern California, which I have decided to showcase as our below the surface recreation leisure subculture, is the kiting community. Communities who utilize different materials for air flight of kites. Me myself, I would not say I'm an avid kiter, but I do kite as a hobby. We oftentimes go to our beaches, and you will find these beautiful, vibrant colored kites floating all over the sky while people are sunbathing, playing volleyball, throwing baseballs, um, all the great, summer fun events that we like to do here in Southern California. You will find beautiful kites in the air. I do believe that kiting is an American pastime. It's not as popular as it used to be, or maybe I would say it's more of a niche, but I did want to highlight kiting. I also wanted to let you guys know, as a recreation therapist, I too had a kiting program in place for my students, for my 14 to 18-year-old clients that I worked with when I was working at the state hospital. So kiting is something that they just truly enjoyed, being able to harness the power of wind and being able to do all kind of tricks and being able to manage their kite without losing their kite. You'll find that it is a very focused, high focused, high visual aesthetic type of program. And then the beauty of it is, while the person who is controlling the kite is doing that so intently, you have others who are just enjoying seeing this beautiful kite in the air, right? So I definitely wanted to highlight kiting as our leisure recreation subculture for this episode. Yes. And next up, guys, our next segment is Iron Sharpens Iron, navigating work, life, workplace dynamics. Dan, take it away.
Right. Well, actually, sure. Well, of course, it's definitely a situation where you kind of, in our profession, the important thing to remember kind of is putting the people first, putting the participants, residents, and your staff first, if you're in management, because they actually are in a situation where they have to pay. It's a for-profit system, and that often doesn't mix well with what we do because our goal is to discharge people ultimately, ideally, especially if they're in an institutionalized kind of setting. And yet the places are making more profits when the beds are full. So that's a dichotomy that doesn't mix. It really is. So that's just why we have to make sure that we're doing that. And it's a shame in a way. That's the tough thing about this system. But uh, but yeah, that's where there's conflicts really with in terms of with administration sometimes because they have that agenda to make money. It's a business, and
Yeah.
whereas you really want the best outcomes for the people.
That's right, absolutely.
Uh,
The fact, it really is very disconcerting because you do, like I mentioned before, you do have RTs that are focused on and strictly focused on, client-centered programming that affects a positive change, right? And improved health outcomes. And when you do have a profit-driven healthcare delivery model that focuses on sickness instead of on health, it does seem to be kind of like a conflict, right? Sometimes as RTs, we wonder why can't we get funding? Why can't we get the resources that we need, right? And it's oftentimes in these business offices, they focus on the dollars and cents, not necessarily the health and the quality of services metrics, unfortunately. So it does put us in a situation where we're battling. Just thinking about some of the many things that we have to navigate in that setting when it is more profit driven. Many RTs believe that the fact that some agencies and organizations don't have RTs doing any kind of revenue generating billing, right, puts us at a strong disadvantage. What's your thoughts on that, Dan?
for sure. Yeah, I mean, and we got to keep on fighting. We need us to be more sometimes in administration, but be keeping careful in that sense not to get compromised because it really is a disconnect with the profit-driven healthcare system and what we do. So, keep fighting. I know a lot of you do very good work and stand up to the system. So, that's, I guess, kind of what we have to do. So, yeah, that's really,
Yeah.
too. Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I think also too there are other tried methods that work very well. One is to create allyship. So oftentimes what I do, being when I was a direct staff and also when I went into management, was that oftentimes I did have a sit down with executive management or the foundation that's associated with the agency to find out what their their 5 year, their 10 year perspectives was, meaning what goals did the organization have within the next 5 or 10 years that they were tracking, right? And then finding how I could utilize recreation therapy to aid them in achieving those goals, right? And
Good
what I
idea.
had found was
Great
by
strategy.
doing that, not only did I circumvent the my direct supervisor, who oftentimes sometimes could be hostile, right? But it was
Mhm.
my way of creating allyship and creating someone who could champion the cause of my discipline. So that when I needed things or I needed to be at certain strategic planning meetings, I could be there. I could be invited. And that greatly circumvented the whole profit driven healthcare delivery model. It circumvented the fact that the RTs may not have been doing any billing, right? It circumvented all of that because, as far as billing and getting resources, image, right? Image and client satisfaction is king, right? So, having clients speak highly of programming and how great of a time they had and how they see an improvement on their functionality is the great stories that oftentimes a lot of business offices want before they deliver the numbers. So
Yeah.
we were able to provide that very essential um, need to leadership, and quid pro quo, one hand washes the other. Yeah,
Yeah. Well, yeah, of course. I mean, public relations is a multi-billion-dollar industry in this country. So I've said it before. And so we got to take advantage of that. Mhm.
absolutely,
And that's one
definitely.
way to do it. Yeah. Everybody wants strong public relations. Every organization really does, or they ought to want, strong public relations. So that really is what it's about, that perception of the public. But,
Yeah, absolutely.
mhm.
Hmm.
Anyway, yeah. I'm gonna move to behind the numbers, mental health, which talks about like mental health and pop culture marketing. This
Mm.
is really interesting when it comes to the movement of the way that the world is changing. There's many towns across the country that are becoming declaring themselves stigma-free towns. So say, actually, for example, out of 70 municipalities in Bergen County, New Jersey, 69 have adopted resolutions that designated themselves stigma-free. Uh, so, and only actually one of them is a holdout because that mayor believes that such a resolution is unnecessary. But um, anyway, like I was saying, stigma free for mental health is a big area, a big push that's being done nowadays, and it kind of just shows that we are oftentimes the biggest one of the bigger things that we have to fight is just the stigma in terms of getting treatment. Uh, a lot of people with mental health issues are concerned about the stigma if they get treatment. So the whole push to get it stigma free is to help get people into treatment. And that's very beneficial when, at least if people believe that, in the sense that there's not going to be a stigma. We are constantly fighting outside influences as far as in like therapy. Basically, we are basically And so whether that be the stigma, whether that be eating disorders, a big part of eating disorders is all those images in society, commercials,
Yes,
TV,
goodness.
radio, yeah, magazines of, girls who are unrealistically thin. So,
Yeah.
that's a big, big issue. The whole notion of keeping up with the Joneses kind of makes people unhappy. Just because your neighbor has a Porsche doesn't mean you have to have that to be happy. You can be totally happy without a Porsche and with items that are much, much less expensive. You can still have a very happy and productive life without having, what your neighbor has. So there's a lot of free and low cost resources that we promote in leisure education and recreational therapy. So this is kind of huge. Uh, the what we are kind of facing oftentimes and helping people look at it differently. That's the cognitive
Mm-hmm.
behavioral aspect of what we do is
Yeah.
having people look at um, the different ways of looking at life and society. Yeah.
That is so true. Just thinking about just even the social justice and community building aspect of recreation therapy. You're right. This is the tenements of the profession. Inclusiveness, equitability, sustainability. These are all tenements of our profession because we know a community is as strong as their weakest link. And when you have people not getting the things that they need to grow and thrive, it's like a cancer, it can spread. And we've seen the breakdown of certain communities. We've seen the disparity and the numbers that are gathered as a result of disparities and inequitable legislation. And we definitely fight against that. And the way that we as therapists fight against that is by creating social, leisure, recreation, and therapeutic benefit for all as well. So oftentimes I say we fight by caring and by healing. That's how we fight. Yeah, that's how we fight. Thank you for those numbers. That's so interesting to see that the towns in New Jersey are taking actionable steps in such a collective way. I do hope that this will be spread across the nation, that
Yeah,
even
and
out
it,
there.
it does seem to be. I mean, I have heard that. I've seen quite a bit of towns. Well, I also live in this area. Stigma-free towns, of course. Is everybody in that town stigma-free? No. But the fact that that is a step in the right direction, having a resolution that the town is stigma-free, that means that, the board in and of itself is really promoting a stigma-free town. And, if the leaders of the community are uh, promoting a stigma-free environment, that is a positive step. So,
Yeah, and the fact that that's intentionality. It's
mm,
saying we're not going to keep it status quo anymore. I'm not going to just not be involved. It speaks to a person being willful and intentional in their actions. And we're recreation therapists are all about action when it comes to our interacting with our clients, in my opinion. We can definitely improve on action to advocate for ourselves. And that's why we have Recreation Rooster Podcast. Okay, guys. And next up, we have our next segment on cornering the market, successful tips in private practice. So today I wanted to talk about sourcing staff. So many different um, topics just underneath that overarching one, right, of sourcing staff. So, one of the first things I wanted to mention regarding sourcing staff is when do you know, as a recreation therapist that's doing private work, right, that you need to start sourcing staff. Some of us, pretty much majority of our career, have always had a side gig, a part-time job somewhere where we were working with clients, probably for private pay, probably through another agency, a staffing firm, something to, make the ends meet. Let's be honest here. Most agencies or organizations that we work with as recreation therapists, 40 hours a week, we may not be getting the pay that we need or desire. So, with that being said, when you decided that you're going to go out here and start your own business, either you're going to be an independent contractor yourself, or you're actually going to start a firm or a corporation, right? And offer these services on a larger scale. There's going to come a time when your time is more valuable, right? So you want to maximize your time. So let's say there's a scenario. You're working 40 hours a week, but you're also working maybe 10 hours a week doing private practice work. You got more contracts than you have time. That's when you know you need to start to figure out what business structure you want in place. And you also have to figure out a game plan as to how you're going to delegate these contracts out and have other people work with you and for you, right? To ensure that you can deliver these services competently, competitively, professionally to your clientele and to the businesses that service the clientele. Okay. So, with that being said, some people do the traditional route. They ask a friend, right? They say, "Hey, so and so, I've been knowing you all these years. You live in the area. Hey, you looking for a job, right?" Then you have some who actually try to source through their workplace, the 40-hour-a-week workplace. I would strongly suggest that you never source where you work. That is a total conflict of interest. And if you have any issues at work, it could potentially spill over into your private contracting. Or if you have issues in your private contracting, it could potentially spill over into your 40-hour work week workplace. So oftentimes it's good just to keep those very delineated and separate from one another. Then you have some that actually go on to job boards like Indeed, or many of the other really popular ones. And they say, okay, I'm going to post an ad. Okay, I'm going to pay $30. I'm going to post an ad. It's going to post for 10 days, right? Then you have other job boards where they might say, okay, I'm going to go to my professional association. I'm going to go to ATRA. I'm going to go to other professional associations. I might go to myrecreationtherapist.com or whatnot, and I'm going to source. I'm going to either place an ad or I'm going to look at list and I'm going to source. And I'm going to start to solicit people who may be interested. Now, remember, that's a numbers game, okay? So you're definitely going to have a lot more labor when it comes to sourcing, and then furthermore, weeding out which ones that are best fit for your clients, right? So, because at the end of the day, what you don't want to happen, you don't want to do a random, just get a RT just because they may have applied to your ad, or that you saw their name and they live close by wherever they needed to work. You have to use more than just convenience in choosing, because as you guys know, we're recreation therapists. We don't just work with clients for a week or two, or for a 6-week referral, or a 12-week referral. We work with clients for a lifetime. So you have to take it into great consideration that you get the best fit. Oftentimes, what I have found to be the most successful when it comes to sourcing is to source on a reputable site, meaning pay the extra money, get an ad placed on a reputable site, and then have screening questions added to your job profile that they have to meet. If they don't meet them, the screening profile will automatically say, thank you for applying, but no thank you, right? And then, of course, setting up a proper screening and interview protocol that is equitable and fair for everyone across the board. Do not go loosey-goosey off the head. actually have these things laid out. And a lot of that has a lot to do with your client or the business that services your client, to ensure that you can, things that are the most important and valuable for that organization, that those things are also included in that interview as well. Um, One thing you definitely want to ensure is that this contractor can work independent. So utilizing RTs that are fresh out of school, who may not have developed those proficiencies yet, is a liability. So be mindful of that, especially in the private sector, because you could lose a contract like that. Okay, you can get a bad rating like that. That can adversely impact your business. And then also to really ask yourself a really important question: do you have the time to train? Do you have the time to look at every document that that therapist submits for that client before it's turned in to that organization? If you don't have the time to do that kind of supervision, then make sure that you do everything that you need to do on the front end of hiring and sourcing staff, to ensure that those candidates, those RTs that are candidates to do that private work, can demonstrate proficiencies, clinical proficiencies, professionalism, attitude, reliability, punctuality, that they can deliver those things and demonstrate those things to you before you proceed forward. You are better off not placing an RT that does not demonstrate those than to place an RT that does not demonstrate those things, and having to work them up to speed at the mercy of the client. I have one golden rule at New Horizons Concierge Firm, and that is to never practice on clients. You practice at home, okay? You perfect your craft at home for free. You never practice on clients. Clients are not your guinea pigs. And I feel like, having opportunities to do internships and volunteering with other well-seasoned RTs, shadowing well-seasoned RTs, are ways that you practice. Not by saying, I'm a consultant, I want to be paid. I don't quite know how to do that, but I'm going to try to do something with your client. Like, no, that's not what you're supposed to do. That's not ethical. And that does not demonstrate strong professional efficacy. You want to make sure that you have the skills in place, and that you can demonstrate those skills, and that you can offer quality programming that affects a positive change and tangible deliverables. So that is just a little scratching the surface when it comes to sourcing staff. We're going to talk about it a lot more. But I think the thing I wanted to stress today is just really doing your due diligence and ensuring that you get a quality, competent, professional staff, especially on the private side. Any questions, Dan?
I agree. Yeah, that is definitely the best thing you can do. Hire well.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I've definitely got some stories.
Yeah.
I opened a New Horizons concierge firm in 2016. And so it's been a great experience every walk of the way. But, there was some things that I had to learn very quickly to ensure that that the firm could have a reputable and be in good standing with the community at large. And a big part of that is sourcing the right individuals to work there. Yeah. All right, guys. Next up is nuts and bolts and TR, where we're going to talk about equipment and supplies that are oftentimes used in recreation therapy settings. And one thing I wanted to mention was writing utensils, guys. So over the course of working in the profession for 23 years, oftentimes I am a stickler for writing utensils. I have a story. I was doing a process group one particular day on a mental health substance addiction unit, and none of my dry erase markers worked. And I was just like, oh my God, all my markers are either dried out or they were not working properly. And the dry erase board was cleaned with like alcohol solution instead of its regular solution. So It also lost all the coating on the outside of it so that when you use the markers, it either wasn't showing up or it wasn't erasing. So it was just a lot going on. And I say that to say this, stressing the importance of having good quality writing utensils when you are facilitating programming. When you don't have what you need as far as markers, dry erase markers, anything like that, it really does inhibit the flow of programming. So everything from, writing utensils for your clients, writing utensils for yourself, safety pencils, ink pencils, color markers, gel pens, just the whole nine, just ensuring that you take the time and understand how important these decisions are made. And I know sometimes when you look into the Office Max or the Office Depot shopping catalogs, it can be a bit overwhelming because there's so much to choose from. But I will often say, do your due diligence and definitely take strong consideration into the decisions that you make for these small price items. They packed a big punch when it comes to quality of programming, flow of programming, and ease of programming for your clients. So, I love me a good gel pen. I love me a good ballpoint. I love me a good highlighter, dry erase markers. I just love me good watercolor markers, just all types of different writing utensils that can be utilized. I still like me a good number 2 pencil. If we're doing art and we're doing shading, I love graphite pencils that can be used in shading. I love a good eraser. I am eraser, the white rubber erasers, or even the pencil sharpeners. I love me a good pencil sharpener. It will help you to sustain and use your writing utensils even more efficiently when you have the right type of pencil sharpeners. I oftentimes do shelf rotation where I check markers periodically, like every 3 months. I check markers. I try to make sure I don't over order markers because markers will dry out, right? So you will think, oh, I'm going to order, 4 canisters of 50 count markers. And then before you know it, if you didn't get through half of them, the other half are dried up. You just wasted money. So,
Mm.
it's things like that to consider. And then also just the whole thing of, storage for your writing utensils and stuff to ensure that they are stay dry and in a cool place is essential as well. So just, having these type of discussions about writing utensils and the role that they play in recreation therapy programming is just so super critical. So I hope that you share a love for writing utensils like I do. Okay. I think it's a recreation therapist thing. What's your thoughts on that, Dan?
I agree. Yeah, definitely. It is very important. It sounds small, but it's very important.
Very important. Absolutely. All right. And next up, guys, we're going to talk a little bit about the therapist friend, clinical tips. So, clinical considerations for recreation therapists in acute settings. Um, I wanted to touch on something that I learned while I was in school, but I don't really hear very many therapists talking about it these days. And this is particularly for recreation therapists that work in behavioral health settings, but this can be utilized in any setting, actually. And I wanted to talk about establishing behavioral baselines. Oftentimes, when we have a new admit, we don't really know much about them. We may read the chart, we may get collateral interviews with caregivers, family members, and even other colleagues that may have worked with the client. We may even talk to, the occupational therapist, physical therapist, the recreation therapist, the speech therapist, right? We may talk to nursing assistants, and everyone. We may even talk to day program. Let's just say client has a behavioral issue. Okay. Take those first 3 to 7 days, and when you have interactions with that client, track the desired behavior that you want to focus on. Okay. And track the frequency. How often does it happen? What is the duration that it happens? Does it require one prompt for it to stop? Does it require 2 prompts for it to stop? Track it. when you track this, after those 7 days are over, come up with an average. Okay. You utilize that baseline, right? And also you come up with a severity code. Is it life threatening? Is it not life threatening? How intense is it, right? Track it and document it. And after you pass those 3 days or those 5 days or those 7 days, you utilize that average as a baseline for your goals and objectives that you're putting in place as this recreation therapist. Whether or not it is a skill acquisition or it is a symptom management, right? And then you also list how you are going to measure it, measure progress or lack of progress, and what intervention you're going to be utilizing to aid them in managing it. Okay. And what you do with this baseline is that's how you're able to give them an attainable objective. You can't just go off the cuff and just say, off the dome and say, oh, they can meet that by this time. How do you know what they're able to meet if you did not get a baseline? You don't know. That's a shot in the dark. So to be more intentional and to do something that is more feasible as a therapist, because we want our clients to be able to meet the goals that we put in place for them. If you got a goal for a client has not met that goal in a whole year, your goal is not reachable. You need to create milestones, or you need to do a period of establishing a baseline. Oftentimes I feel like establishing the baseline is the first step in creating a goal and objective. What's your thoughts on that, Dan?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense, actually. Very
Yeah,
good. Mm.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I would love to hear if any RTs in particular are actually establishing baselines first before you do a goal or objective, or if you're not. And if you're not, how are you coming up with your goal and objective? So curious. And remember, it's a judge-free zone. It's just a great way for us as clinicians to talk about these type of clinical considerations that are instrumental in our plans of care and progress, lack of progress for our clients as well. So it's always great. So if you are not doing, if you're not establishing baselines as a recreation therapist, or you never heard, reach out to Dan and I, and we can definitely consult with you on that as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely. And last but not least, guys, is our last segment for episode 19. And it is our Recreation Rooster stamp of approval. And today, we would love to give our stamp of approval to Mr. Brent Wolfe, who is the Executive Director for the American Therapeutic Recreation Association, which is a nonprofit association that is charged with not only organizing recreation therapists worldwide, but also advocating for the empowerment, sustainability, and the edification of the profession. If you don't know Mr. Wolfe Brent, I'm sure you'll be knowing him soon. He is an amazing, charismatic figure in the recreation therapy profession. He is not only the executive director of ATRA, but he is also a professor. He is a friend. He is a community advocate. He is an advocate for the profession. And he is just a remarkable individual who has a zest and a love for life. And he's also very much a family man, and he's a great clinician. So Recreation Rooster would love to give our stamp of approval for episode 19 to Mr. Brent Wolfe.
Mm-hmm.
You're great, Brent, and we can't wait to see you at the ATRA conference, which is coming up soon in July, where they're going to be celebrating their 40th anniversary as an organization. We appreciate everything that ATRA is doing. We appreciate the organization that you have evolved ATRA to. And we are looking forward to many, many more opportunities to collaborate with ATRA as Recreation Rooster Podcast and also as individuals, Dan and I. And with that being said, guys, that is the end of episode 19, which was slated to air May 6th. We're going to actually load it up right away. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please like, share, comment, and follow. You can also find us on major platforms such as TikTok, IG, Facebook. You can find us on our website at www.recreationrooster.org. You can also purchase one of our wonderful t-shirts for $25. You showed us a
We're
t-shirt.
also on YouTube. We have a YouTube channel.
Yes, and also you can find us on our YouTube channel. So reach out, and then also too, if you are seeking any consultation services, both of us have our own businesses as well. You can reach out to me at info@newhorizons-concierge.com. And you can also reach out to me by phone 213-524-6925, and we are in the greater Los Angeles area. Okay.
Yes, yes, of course. And I'm in the greater New York City area. Please call me at 845-987-0104. 845-987-0104. Daniel at recreationrooster.org. Daniel at recreation.org. www.recreationrooster.org. Feel free to get, and please get a t-shirt.
Bye bye, guys.
Uh,